You're checking your phone less, responding slower, not initiating anymore. And part of you is secretly hoping that your absence will make her finally see what she had. Here's what most men don't understand. When a woman takes you for granted, pulling away triggers one of three responses, and only one is the regret you're hoping for. Most guys get curiosity. She wonders where you went, texts once or twice, then moves on when someone else gives her attention. That's not regret. That's ego. Some get relief. She's glad you backed off because now she doesn't feel guilty about stringing you along. That's not regret either. That's liberation. But there's a third response, genuine regret. The kind that keeps her up at night. The kind that makes her realize she took something irreplaceable for granted. And it only happens when three specific conditions existed before you pulled away. I'm going to show you what those three conditions are, how to tell if your situation qualifies, the timeline of how regret develops, and the point when it's too late, when she's moved past where regret is even possible. Because understanding the mechanics is the only way to know if you're waiting for something real or wasting time on someone who's already forgotten you. Look, I'm not here to give you false hope or sell you on some manipulation tactic. I'm here to give you clarity, so you can make informed decisions instead of sitting in limbo wondering if she's going to wake up one day and realize she messed up. The truth is, most dating advice around this topic is either overly optimistic or brutally pessimistic. Either she'll definitely regret it if you just disappear, or move on, she never cared. But reality is more nuanced than that. Some women do experience genuine regret. Some don't. And whether yours falls into the first category or the second isn't random. It's based on measurable psychological conditions that existed before you ever pulled away. So what I'm about to walk you through isn't theory. It's the actual mechanics of how female regret develops when it does happen, and the conditions that make it possible in the first place. Here's the problem most men face. They pull away from a woman who's been taking them for granted, expecting that absence to trigger some kind of awakening, that she'll suddenly realize how good she had it, that she'll miss him, that she'll come back. But what actually happens most of the time? Nothing. Or worse, she feels relieved. And the man sits there checking his phone, wondering when she's going to text, when she's going to realize, when the regret is going to kick in. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And eventually, he sees her with someone else, completely unbothered, and realizes she never looked back. Why does this happen? Because most men fundamentally misunderstand what creates genuine regret in a woman's mind. They think it's about time. If I just stay away long enough, she'll miss me. But time alone doesn't create regret. It just creates distance. And distance can make someone either grow fonder or move on faster, depending on what foundation was there to begin with. They think it's about making her jealous or showing her what she's missing. But that triggers ego, not genuine regret. Ego makes her want to win you back to prove she still can. Regret makes her realize she lost something irreplaceable. There's a massive difference between those two. And if you don't understand it, you'll completely misread her eventual response, if there even is one. So here's what we're going to cover. First, the 3 non-negotiable conditions that must exist for genuine regret to even be possible. Then, the realistic timeline, how long each psychological stage actually takes when regret does develop. And finally, the point of no return, so you know exactly when it's too late, and you need to stop waiting. By the end, you'll be able to diagnose your own situation and know where you stand. The first condition is emotional investment depth. And I don't mean how long you dated or how often you saw each other. I mean, did she actually become emotionally dependent on you in a meaningful way? Because here's what most men don't realize. You can spend months with someone and still have a surface-level connection. You hang out. You have fun. Maybe you're intimate. But if she never opened up about her fears, her past pain, her real dreams, then the emotional bond isn't deep enough to create genuine regret when you're gone. Think about it like this. When someone takes you for granted, it's because they've gotten comfortable with your presence. But comfort doesn't equal attachment. Attachment happens when someone has been vulnerable with you, when they've shared parts of themselves they don't show everyone, when they've relied on you emotionally during hard times. That's what creates the kind of bond where your absence feels like an actual loss, not just an inconvenience. So the question you need to ask yourself is, did she ever really let you in? Did she call you when she was stressed or scared? Did she tell you things she was embarrassed about or insecure about? Did you know her on a level that went beyond the surface? If the answer is no, if your connection was mostly physical attraction, fun dates, and good times without much emotional depth, then, when you pull away, she's not going to feel like she lost something irreplaceable. She's going to feel like she lost someone who was pleasant to have around. And pleasant is easy to replace. This is why guys who were the fun option or the convenient option don't get regret. They get replaced. Because there was never enough emotional investment for her brain to register your absence as a real loss. Now, if she did invest deeply, if she was vulnerable with you, if she leaned on you emotionally, if she integrated you into her identity in meaningful ways, then you have the first condition. But here's the thing. That's not enough on its own. Because even deep emotional investment doesn't guarantee regret if the second condition isn't present. The second condition is what I call the irreplaceability factor. And this one is harsh, but you need to hear it. Most men are functionally replaceable in the modern dating landscape. I know that stings. But think about it from her perspective. If she can find someone who provides similar emotional connection, similar physical attraction, similar lifestyle compatibility within a few weeks or months, then your absence isn't going to haunt her. She's going to move on. Regret only develops when replacement attempts fail. When she tries to find what you gave her in someone else and realizes it's not there. When she dates other guys and keeps comparing them to you, and they keep coming up short. But here's what creates that irreplaceability. It's not about being conventionally attractive or financially successful or having a great personality. Those things can all be found elsewhere. It's about a specific match between who you are and what she values. Maybe you understood her in a way that took her years to build with someone. Maybe you had a specific combination of traits that felt rare to her, like you were both emotionally intelligent and adventurous, or both ambitious and patient. Maybe you filled a need she'd struggled to meet before you came along. The key word there is specific. Generic high value doesn't create irreplaceability. Being a good catch doesn't mean you're irreplaceable to her specifically. It means she can respect you and appreciate you, but still replace you if someone else comes along who checks similar boxes. What makes you irreplaceable is when you match her needs in a way that's genuinely difficult to replicate. And you can usually tell if this condition existed based on how she talked about you. Did she ever say things like, "I've never met anyone like you," or "You just get me in a way other people don't"? Did she express that you understood her in specific ways that felt unique? If she didn't, if you were more of a good boyfriend in a general sense, rather than someone who filled a specific void or met a specific need she valued, then when you pull away, she's going to be able to replace you relatively quickly. And once she does, regret never fully develops. But let's say both conditions are present. Deep emotional investment and irreplaceability. That's still not enough. Because there's a third condition that determines whether she's even capable of regret in the first place. And this third condition is the most brutal filter of all. Self-awareness capability. Here's what I mean. Even if she was deeply invested in you emotionally, even if you're genuinely difficult to replace, None of that matters. If she lacks the self-awareness to recognize that she took you for granted in the first place. And here's the harsh truth that most men don't want to hear. A lot of women simply don't have this level of self-awareness. They're not capable of looking at their own behavior, recognizing their patterns, and admitting, "I didn't appreciate what I had." Instead, they rationalize, they rewrite history, they blame you, they tell themselves they weren't that into you anyway, or that you weren't right for them, or that the relationship had problems that justified how they treated you. And in their mind, they're completely convinced by that narrative. This is why emotional intelligence is such a critical factor. A woman who lacks self-awareness isn't going to sit there 3 months after you've gone and think, "I took him for granted and I messed up." She's going to think he wasn't right for me anyway, or I was justified in how I acted because of X. Yet, to the Z. And here's how you can tell if this condition exists. Look at her track record. Does she ever take accountability in other areas of her life? When past relationships ended, did she ever admit her own mistakes? Or was it always the other person's fault? Does she apologize genuinely when she's wrong? Or does she deflect and justify? If she's someone who always has a reason, always has an excuse, always positions herself as the reasonable one while everyone else is the problem, then she lacks the self-awareness required for genuine regret. And no amount of time or distance is going to change that. You can't make someone self-aware by disappearing. You can't force someone to recognize what they did through your absence. They either have the capacity for self-reflection, or they don't. And this is the condition that so many men get wrong. They assume that if they just stay away long enough, she'll realize. But realization requires self-awareness. And if she doesn't have it, all the time in the world won't create regret. So now you understand what separates the men who haunt her from the men she forgets. Deep emotional investment, genuine irreplaceability, and the self-awareness to recognize what she lost. If your situation has all three, there's a timeline, there's a process, there's hope. But if it's missing even one, especially the third, you're waiting for something that's never going to happen. Now let's talk about that timeline. So if all three conditions are present, how long does regret actually take? Here's the typical timeline in psychological stages. Stage 1. Weeks 1 to 2. Justified relief phase. She tells herself she's better off without you, that you were too needy, too available. Her ego protects her from feeling bad about taking you for granted. Stage 2. Weeks 3 to 4, distraction phase. She keeps busy, goes out more, maybe entertains new attention. She's proving she's fine, but what she's actually doing is avoiding reflection. Stage 3. Weeks 5 to 8. Comparison begins. New guys aren't doing it for her the same way. Attention feels hollow. She notices things they don't understand that you did. Irreplaceability becomes obvious, but she's not admitting it yet. Stage 4. Weeks 9 to 12. Quiet realization. Self-awareness kicks in if she has it. She admits internally that she took you for granted. Ego barriers break down. She's not reaching out yet, but regret is forming. Stage 5. Weeks 13 to 16. Active regret. She genuinely misses you specifically. Not the attention, but you. This is when she might reach out. Not everyone reaches stage 5. Some get stuck at stage 2 or 3 forever through distraction or good enough replacement. Some never leave stage 1 due to lack of self-awareness. The biggest mistake: breaking no contact too early, around stage 2 or 3 when she's still distracted. If you reach out, then, you reset everything. You validate that you're still available, removing any urgency for reflection. If you're giving this a real shot, stay consistent through at least stage 4, minimum 2 to 3 months of actual space. But even then, there's a point when it's too late. So when is it too late? When has she moved past the point where regret is even possible anymore? The primary indicator is new, deep emotional investment elsewhere. If she's developed a genuine connection with someone else, not just casual dating or rebound attention, but actual emotional investment, then her psychological door has closed. Because emotional energy is finite. When it's invested deeply in someone new, there's no room left for regret about you. The second indicator is identity shift. If she's redefined how she sees herself in a way that no longer includes you or someone like you in her narrative, you've passed the point of no return. This shows up when she talks about the person I am now versus who I was back then. When you've been relegated to a past version of herself, she's moved beyond. Timeline-wise, this typically happens 4 to 6 months post-separation, if regret hasn't developed by then. But it can happen faster if she meets someone who checks the 3 conditions we talked about: investment, irreplaceability, self-awareness alignment. Here's how you know you've passed it. She's genuinely happy without you. Not pretending to be happy on social media, but actually thriving. Her life has reorganized around a new center that doesn't include you. And when you do interact, if you do, there's polite indifference rather than lingering feelings. This is why indefinite waiting is dangerous. Because at some point, you're not waiting for her to realize anything. You're just watching her build a life that has nothing to do with you. And here's the hard question you need to ask yourself. If you've passed the point of no return, or if your situation never had the 3 conditions to begin with, are you still waiting because you genuinely believe something will change? Or because letting go feels like admitting defeat? Because here's what high-value men understand. The point of no return isn't just about her. It's about you, too. It's about knowing when to stop investing emotional energy in someone who isn't capable of recognizing your worth. It's about having the self-respect to walk away from a situation that's never going to give you what you're hoping for. And that brings me to something most dating coaches won't tell you, something you need to hear, even if it's hard to accept. Here it is. Most men watching this don't have all 3 conditions in their situation, which means she's not going to regret it. And that's okay. I know you don't want to hear that. But if she didn't invest deeply, if you're easily replaceable, or if she lacks self-awareness, pulling away won't create regret. It'll just create distance while she moves on, and you wait. Here's what's liberating. Knowing she won't regret it frees you to stop waiting. To stop checking your phone, analyzing her social media, living in limbo where you're not with her but not fully free. Let me ask you, even if she came back, would you want someone who only valued you after you were gone? Someone who took you for granted and only appreciated you in absence? Are you hoping for her regret because you want her back, or because you want validation that you mattered? If it's validation, you don't need her regret. You already know you mattered. She couldn't see it. That's her loss, not your inadequacy. The truth. You don't need her to regret taking you for granted. You need someone who doesn't take you for granted in the first place. Someone who invests deeply, can't replace you, and has the self-awareness to appreciate what she has while she has it. That's what you should move toward. Not waiting for someone who might realize what they lost, but finding someone who never loses sight of what they have. So let me ask you directly. Looking at those 3 conditions, deep emotional investment, genuine irreplaceability, self-awareness capability, does your situation actually have them? Or have you been holding on to hope that isn't there? Be real in the comments. How many are realizing you've been waiting for someone who was never going to reach regret? And for those who do have all 3 conditions, what stage are you in? Comparison phase, quiet realization, or past the point of no return and needing permission to move on? I read every comment. I want to know where you're at because this is your actual life, time, and emotional energy. I'm here to help you make the smartest decision. This channel isn't about getting any woman to regret anything. It's about clarity for powerful decisions, strategic patience, if conditions exist, or moving forward if they don't. We're building a community of men who understand their worth. Don't chase validation. Don't wait indefinitely for someone to realize what they had. Men who know the difference between hope and delusion, between strategic withdrawal and desperate waiting. Here's your bottom line. You don't need her regret to validate your worth. You don't need her realization to prove you were valuable. You already are. The question is whether you'll keep investing in someone who can't see it, or redirect that energy towards someone who will. Drop your situation in the comments. Let's figure out where you stand. You're not alone. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop waiting and start moving forward.